So we are starting today the second class of the Spiritist review course. I would like to first welcome all of you, but also all our friends and who are following us on our YouTube channel. I want to welcome you today in name of the Spiritist Federation of Florida. We have joined forces. The Spiritist Federation of Florida has embraced this project, and it's now the course is now part of the Spiritist Federation of Florida, which is meant to give the project more visibility, more strength, and also help to gather more hearts around this ideal of studying and spreading the message of Spiritism through the course of the Spiritist Review. So welcome, everyone. If you are coming today for the first time, I would like to say that today we will be finishing the first slide presentation that we have. We had a few slides missing, and then we'll enter in our the class for today per se. In addition to that, let me see if there's anything else that I need to share with you guys. I don't think so. We are going to get started. I want to encourage you guys to use the chat as much as possible. People can also talk, but if it's just an observation or something that you want to put, maybe a question that's not the time to ask, you can also use the chat. Let's try to use the chat as much as possible. I will have Andrea and Michele help me out looking at the chat here at Zoom and also on YouTube, and we'll try to ask as many questions and allow space for engagement, but in a way that we can actually keep the flow of the course going. Okay, so let's just do a initial prayer as always. So please join me in asking the good spirits to bless us, to bless our intent, to bless this group of spirits in both realms of life, to guide our thoughts this evening, helping us to really extract as much learning as possible from these lessons that can be the basis of our faith and help us to live our lives better. So thank you so much, and so be it. All right, folks, I knew there was something else that I want to say before we get going. Just a reminder of how I have thought and kind of talked to a few other people about how we're going to run this course, right? So you have assigned readings. We expect you to do, if you didn't read and you have questions, please hang in there, all right? It's really important that everybody does the reading so they come to the meeting knowing what we are talking about. And what we are going to do, a lot of times, people don't know exactly how to study Spiritism or how to study things in general. So I usually, when I read something, I try not only to understand the general context of the text, but I really want to make sure that every single sentence and every single word in the text is understood by me. And I really understand the deeper meaning of that message. So this course is not a course for someone who's in a rush to finish, because there is no rush. So as we read through the Spirit's Review, we will take some time to make sure that the group understands some of the concepts that have been studied and developed by the spirits in the codification. So it's going to have a little bit of a popcorn feel, in the sense that we're going to be going from the Spirits Review to the books of the codification to look at concepts that are important and that, you know, it would be good to know where we can find them in the Spiritist codification. So like me, I really recommend that you have handed right next to you the 5 books of the codification, as well as your Spirits Review and what is Spiritism for every single class. So if we need to go somewhere, you have it right next to you. Okay, if you don't have these books, they can be purchased at the site of the U.S. Spiritist Federation, and many of them at Amazon as well. Okay, all right, so let's get started. Let me share my screen, which is usually a challenge, but let's see. I should get better as we do more and more of this. So here we go, slideshow. All right, so last week we finished reading this text here, and today we are resuming on slide 25. And this is the very end of our presentation from last week. And let me check your knowledge. We're gonna from time to time have like some pit stops just to check and see, who knows. So in what order did Kardec recommend the Spirits book to be read? We did touch on it last week very briefly, but at the time that we look at the Kardec's recommendation, there were only 4 books published. Now, does anyone know or remember from last week what was the order that Kardec suggested? Please raise your hand using the little hand, and I'll take 1 or 2 answers if the first person does not answer correctly. Any volunteers for this?
No.
Nope. Okay. Come on, folks. What was the first book to read? The one that is
left her hand.
Mary?
Which one?
Okay, I'm pretty sure it was the Spirits book, then
Wrong.
the Mediums.
Wrong.
Wrong. Okay.
Mhm.
No.
You weren't here last week, were you?
No, but I read it. I read the book.
Oh, okay.
That's why I thought.
All right. Okay. So next here on my screen, I see who won.
It's one.
JC.
What is Spiritism?
What is Spiritism? Correct. That's correct. So that is the first one. So let's look over here at the answer. Okay, so here we go. The first reading should be this summary. What is Spiritism? Which presents a collection of the most salient points of the science. By reading it, one can get an idea about it and be convinced that in essence, it contains something very serious. So it's a summary. It's meant to make people curious and interested and intrigued and ask themselves, you know, what else is there? So from this summary, we go a desire to know more about Spiritism. Then it should take us to the Spirits book, where the principles of the doctrine are fully developed. And then next to the Mediums book for the experimental part, meant to serve as a guide for those who want to proceed by themselves or for those who want to get a clear idea of the phenomena. And then after that, what is next? Okay, so here we go. Next, give me 1 second. Oh Lord, here we go. Then comes the assorted works in which the applications and consequences of the doctrine are developed, such as the Gospel according to Spiritism, Heaven and Hell, etc. The Review Spirit is sort of an application course due to the numerous examples and developments it contains on the theoretical and the experimental aspect. So after reading those initial books, the other books are considered by Kardec as books that look at the application of the concepts. And that's it, right? Yes. Okay, so that's the order that Kardec has recommended. This answer is found in the book, What is Spiritism? Okay, so it was extracted, that text, from What is Spiritism? The conversation that Kardec has with the priest in this book. The very, very last paragraph, the last and the one before, is where we have this statement by Allan Kardec. Okay, and this was our homework for this week's work. So let me just change here for 1 second. Give me a minute. Let's share again. 1 minute. I'm going to open the other
Susanna,
page.
Claudio has asked a question. What are we going to learn new reading the Spiritist Review that is not in the main books of the doctrine? So in the main 5 books, he wants to know if we're going to learn.
Do you want to answer?
Sure. We're going to learn a lot more. One of the things that we talked about also was not only about matters that were brought up for discussion, the communication from Spiritists all over the world, but also the type of feedback, the type of experimentations, Allan Kardec's own thoughts and point of views, as well as other mediumistic communication that was shared from other participants from all over the world. So there is a lot to be learned. One of the things that we really focused on during the pandemic was something that was found in the Spiritist Review of 1867 or 68. I don't recall very well, which is when the world was hit by a pandemic, and how Spiritists actually, made up with this, how they actually were able to support themselves, support each other, and they found solace a lot in the communication that was also received by Allan Kardec, and that was also posted in the Spiritist Review of 67, 68. So there is a lot to be learned. And I think that all of us will have a lot to gain from these books. Claudio, I hope that answers your questions.
Well done, and gave me just the time that I needed to open here my the other presentation.
And
So,
JC, Han, when you're called, it's you, my friend. Make sure you speak up.
okay. So we are going to open today looking at the homework. The homework was to read about the biography of Allan Kardec and see if there was any aspect that we did not know about him, and if the biography in any way inspire each one of you in the present moment. So I would like, 2 volunteers to share. Okay, so we're gonna go with John first.
Let's see. What I found out about Kardec in his biography, he started off with one of my favorite professions, teaching. He was a teacher. He not only taught classes, he not only taught his friends, but that, I guess, was his first love, was to be able to transmit knowledge to other people on a pretty extensive scale. I think that's a notable attribute. I love teachers.
You're a good teacher too.
We try.
Thank you, John. David, Fatima.
What I found fascinating, well, there was 2 sources of information. One was the article from the Spiritist Review, but also what you referred to as well was the eulogy at Kardec's passing ceremony, should we say. And there's 2 aspects that I found very fascinating. One was the eulogist, who was Camille Flammarion, who at the time was only actually 27 years old. He was a brilliant astronomer and scientist and author, very prodigious in all his works. I think he published more than 50 books in his lifetime. But it was interesting that they chose him. And he had a very special relationship with Kardec. In fact, Kardec in the book Genesis, I think it's chapter 6, there is a whole chapter that was actually channeled by Camille. The general unography is called. It's all about the Earth, the solar system, the planets, a very deep study. And he signs himself Galileo. Now, Kardec makes no reference whether it was Galileo, the spirit, or whether Camille was a reincarnation of Galileo, or whether Galileo was Galileo Galileo, the great astronomer. So he never makes a reference to that, as the same as he did with the Spirit of Truth. He never said that was possibly a reincarnate, or it was a spirit that Jesus was communicating. So that was one very interesting aspect. 27-year-old, he was chosen when Kardec's peers were very, in the late 60s and so on, but he was chosen. Again, I think because he was a very special friend of Kardec. But the other thing is, when you read that eulogy, in a way, there's very little about Kardec. He speaks more about the values and the attributes of Spiritism. Mm-hmm. And, thinking about Kardec, I think that's what Kardec would have wanted. He wouldn't have wanted he himself to be praised and remembered, but more he wanted to be remembered for his work. So those are the two things I got out of that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, I guess I could take one more if there is one more person.
Yvonne does have a question. She says that was one of the facts that struck her as well as reading Genesis.
Who said that?
Yvonne said it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, thank you. JC.
Yes, thank you. So one thing I learned is that Kardec's experience with acts of religious intolerance was actually key to his desire to unify religious beliefs, or at least find commonality. So he already had that desire or that mission, and he was given the answer through the doctrine of Spiritism. So I think it was set up already that because of his desire to find commonality among religions, to remove acts of intolerance, it was a proper setup for the introduction of Spiritism.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. How lovely. I put over here on this slide, his name as it was written on his birth certificate. I don't know if many of you know, maybe you guys do, but he's known as Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail. But the actual name in the birth certificate is Denisard Hippolyte Léon Rivail. So, a lot of times people kind of say that, there's like Léon Denis inside Kardec's name, but actually it didn't end up this way because he changed the name himself at the time. But actually the certificate starts with Denisard. And so that's something that I don't know if, the group was aware of. So it's just like a curiosity, more so than anything else. All right. So let's move on. Thank you so much. That was great. So now we are going to our next slide here. So in this slide, it's just to give us an idea of the timing of things, right? Of the publications. Some of us are more or less aware of the years that the books, the codification has been published and where the Spirit's Review falls. So the Spirit Review is going to fall right there after the publication of the Spirit's book. And we're going to see that the very last number that was actually published was published in 1869 and in April. And Kardec passed away on October 3rd, March 31st of 1869, which basically means that he worked until he died. He passed away and he left an entire body of work already prepared. And this last one was then published after his passing. Very good. Next one. All right. So in the Brazilian version, there is a introduction done by a fellow spiritist who is no longer with us, a very big worker of the spirits movement in Brazil. He does the introduction for the translations done by the Spiritist Federation in Brazil. And it's just a really nice summary of some aspects of the Spirits Review. So I took some of it that I thought would be good and put here for us as an introduction of the work. So the Brazilian Spiritist Federation presented a translation of 12 volumes of the review from 1858 to 1869, from French to Portuguese. Translation of one of the most important collections within the Spiritist literature. And it has about 5,000 pages containing Allan Kardec's own writing, as well his direct and personal influence. So again, if you are here with us, we touched on this last week. I may go back and forth a little bit, so to help people to catch up. But just like with posthumous work, which has not yet been translated to English, these two body of works have something very different than the codification, because they embody the thinking, the studies, the observations, the personal ideas of Allan Kardec. Very good. So it would be unnecessary to dispute the utility of a special organization to make the public aware of this new science and prevent it against the excess of credulity as well as skepticism. This is the blank which we propose to fill out with the publication of this review, aiming at providing a communication media to those interested in these questions and to connect to a common bond those who understand the Spiritist doctrine from its true moral point of view, practice of good and evangelical charity towards everyone. So that's the purpose of the work, the publications. And again, I just highlighted here because I really, I think that for the English-speaking public, it's very important to understand, and we will be touching on this, that in Spiritism, although we have the phenomena, although we have the spirits and the philosophy, everything exists and everything is there with one primary purpose, which is the purpose of the moral transformation of mankind. If we have the phenomena, if we have the philosophy, and neither one or the combination of both is strong enough or powerful or meaningful enough to give us a reason to invest in our moral evolution, then there is really, it's really devoid of like the meaning, the power, and the force that this knowledge has and can bring to our life. So I just want to really emphasize that this is our primary objective. This is the key for everything that we do, for the study that we do, our aim. And for that reason, many times, we will not have millions of followers, because a lot of times our society is still very much in search of quick fixes and fast solutions. And what we're here to propose to the Spiritism, to this study, is definitely not a quick fix for anything, but a long-term solution for the issues that we have as humankind. Andrea?
I'm actually just bringing up to the attention a question that was posed by John, which Claudia has done a good job at answering, but perhaps the others haven't seen it, in which he asks if intellectual progress usually precedes moral progress. The text seems to say Kardec first came from the heart and then changed to intellectual progress. I hope this was not a mistake.
So I'm sorry, but who wrote that?
John.
Okay. All right. So that is a point that we have in the Spirits book. And I will challenge the group right now who can find this question in the Spirits book that says that, in which the answer is that the intellectual progress comes before the moral progress. And Kardec was in himself a very evolved spirit. He was a missionary, so he had it. He had the intellectual understanding, and it was precisely his intellectual ability in the lifetime that allowed him to question the phenomena, to seek to understand the phenomena, and in understanding the phenomena, to develop the philosophy that end up bringing the moral consequences. So when we understand the reasons and the whys, then the consciousness, as the consciousness expand, the laws, God's laws, they become more understandable, the consequences. And so it kind of helps us to be, to undertake the moral path. Understanding life precedes, it helps in the development of our moral qualities. And that's something that we can definitely revisit at some point. He himself was already a very, very evolved spirit. So he had the intellect and certainly was driven by the passion of his heart for, the passion for finding the truth. He had the ethical, the ethics in himself. So he went after the truth. He did, as the spirits recommended, a unparalleled work looking for the truth and being absolutely ethic in all his research and all his life. Moving on here. Okay, so we're going to see that, I'll get back to you, Cynthia, in a minute. We're going to see that the success of the Spirits book exceeded all the expectations. At that time in France, there was a very, it was a very positive moment in history in terms of the progress with education that was happening at the time. There was, for instance, less of religious influence in the education, opening the possibility for the development and the progress of ideas. We had culturally the period of the light. So there was a lot of movement and a set of circumstances happening politically in France that actually made it a very positive environment for the Spirits book when it was first launched. It was very successful, and also the Spirits Review. So he receives, after that, reports of spirits facts and also questions from all over the world. People got curious. They had questions. People started sending him articles, newspapers, with some also, if there were some people that were defending and had questions and were curious, there was a lot of people who were attacking the work that was being done. And another fact several countries at the time had Spiritist newspapers. The United States, here where we are, there were 17 papers dealing with the medium mystic manifestations after the phenomenon of Hydrosville. But France did not have a newspaper or any additional publication. So Kardec really felt like there was going to be something important. Okay, so realizing the imperative need to create a paper that would periodically put learners of Spiritism up to par with the phenomena that were happening all over the world and instruct them in an orderly way on the most varied Spiritist issues, Allan Kardec set out to work, despite his lack of time. 1 second, people. For such undertaking and considering his own professional work needed to support himself. Okay, so I have here in bold, right? When I was reading these texts here, instruct them in an orderly way. So he felt the necessity, the need to further instruct the readers, the people who were interested in Spiritism. So where my mind went was, wow, the importance of instruction, right? So here I have a question for you all to test your knowledge. A little stop here. So under which chapter do we find the sentence, "O Spiritists, love one another"? This is the first teaching. Educate yourselves. This is the second. Without looking, does anyone know? Just off your mind. Where would that be? Which book and which chapter? Cynthia.
I think it's in the Gospel according to Spiritism, and it would be, it's where Homem de Bem is there. Be perfect.
Be perfect. Okay, so you got half of the question.
Yes.
Any other soul wants to take a guess? Is that Dave or Fatima?
It's David, but it's a stab.
Oh, it's
was
a
it the
teamwork,
Spirit
so
of Truth?
it's two people, so you guys are like, that's not fair. Go ahead.
No, a communication from the Spirit of Truth.
Which chapter?
I don't know which chapter, but I think the author was not Kardec himself, but a communication from the Spiritist of Truth. The Spirit
Right?
of Truth.
It's warm. It's getting warmer and warmer, right? Who else I have here with Marcus? Marcus de Clay has a hand up? No, maybe.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Chapter 5.
What is the name of it?
The Consoler Christ.
Well, chapter 5 is Blessed the Afflicted.
Oh. Never mind.
Not that I know all the chapters of the gospel by heart. I know this one because, that we talk a lot about that chapter. But you got pretty close. So let's look. Here we go with the answer, folks. Well, it's chapter 6, the Consoling Christ, item number 5. Okay. So here I put, reflect on the context and the importance of the instruction in the gospel according to Spiritism and the chapter in which we find this instruction. So let me see if I can open here my gospel. If you have yours, go ahead and open the gospel, chapter 6, item 5, which is the coming of the Spirit of Truth. So David was right? Was you right, David, that said that? There was some, okay, so you were right. And in this item, he's going to start by saying, Jesus promises another consoler, the Spirit of Truth, whom the world does not yet know because it's not mature enough to understand him. and whom the Father will send to teach all things and bring to remembrance what Christ has said. Therefore, if the Spirit of truth must come later to teach all things, it is because Christ has not said everything. So I'm sorry, this is number 4. Apologies. It's item number 5. It says, I have come as I once came amongst the wayward children of Israel to bring the truth and dissipate the darkness. Listen to me. Spiritism, as my word of old, must remind its believers that above them rises the immutable truth, the good God, the great God who makes the plants germinate and rises the tides. I have revealed the divine doctrine, and like a reaper, I have gathered into sheaves the good scattered amid humankind, and have said, come unto me, all you who suffer. And then he's going to continue. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you go to the last paragraph, it will say, all Spiritists, love one another. This is the first teaching. Educate yourselves or instruct yourself. This is the second. So the importance and the relevance, one of the ways to study the gospel is always to, and this is, if you speak, if you do lectures, you can always use that technique to as an approach to your lectures. So you ask yourself, what is this sentence doing in this chapter? What is the concept of the entire chapter? What is the chapter talking about, and how this particular item falls in here, right? So he starts by saying here, so this is the consoling Christ. So it is a whole message of consolation, why Spirit is consoling. And in this particular item here, he's saying that he's coming to dissipate the darkness by bringing the truth. So darkness will be dissipated if we can understand, if we can grasp the truth. And the way to grasp the truth is through education. In the Spirit's book, we're going to have we have a question and an answer that says that we are only unhappy when we move away from God's laws. So the next question is, what are God's laws? Because if our unhappiness is related to the fact that we are distant from God's laws, it's absolutely imperative that we understand what the laws are. So we have to study, we have to instruct ourselves, because the instruction, and this gets back to what John had mentioned, is going to give us the parameters of the truth, such as immortality, such as future life, and in that is going to change the entire paradigm of our lives and how we live and the values that we embrace. So it was just meant to give a little stop here and for us to think about the importance of instruction. And, Kardec had this purpose. He wanted to have something else that could help us in the instruction, in the education process, in the deepening of our knowledge. Any comments on the chat? Any questions? Any thoughts? If not, we will move forward. Be ready, there will be more questions coming. Okay, so here they mentioned a little bit about his financial doubts. Some of this stuff we also touched last week, so it will be a quick review. I'm going to ask Andrea to read this one for me so I can take a break.
At first, he considered assistance from someone who could financially collaborate with the work, but providential reasons proved this attempt would be challenging. In fact, after consulting with his spirit advisors or spirit guides or the spirit mentors about the possibility of proceeding with the plan, he was advised to persevere in his purpose, not to be intimidated by difficulties, and that there would be sufficient time for everything.
Okay, so so he ended up not getting any help, any financial help at all. and he went forward anyway. And we're going to learn that this was providential at the very end. So let's read one more here. Andrea, keep going.
Instructions given to Allan Kardec. You will have to proceed very cautiously in order to lay the foundation for a lasting success. If it contains any flaws, better not to have done anything at all, for the first impression could decide its future. Especially at the beginning, it is necessary to satisfy people's curiosity. It must contain the serious and the pleasing at one and at the same time. The serious will interest the people of science, and the pleasing will delight the common folk. This part is essential, but the other is more important, since without it, the periodical will not have a solid foundation. Sorry, guys, my phone. In sum, it is necessary to avoid monotony through variety, to combine solid instruction with the interest, and this will be a powerful aid for later works.
All right, thank you. So let me look at the time. Oh, we got time. Okay, so let me actually go back here 1 second. So when I read this first slide here, where my mind went was, so many times things go wrong in our lives, at least from our perspective, right? And we question God, we question divine providence. And here's a situation where Kardec could have said, I'm asking the spirits for some help. I need money. I can't do this without money. I don't have the resources. Forget about this, But despite what appeared to be a big hurdle, he went on, right? And we learned last class that actually turned out to be a good thing, because he had more freedom since he wasn't tied up to anyone financially. He had more freedom to do whatever he wants, right? With the review. So how is it exactly that divine providence works in our lives? Anyone wants to and where in the codification, if anyone knows, can we find anything about divine providence? If I would say, guys, we need to do a lecture for next week, okay, only using Kardec, where would you go? Everybody left. No one left in the classroom. Okay.
Your question, Susanna.
Hi, Monique.
Hi. I didn't understand clearly.
I didn't know you were there.
I'm here.
The question is about divine providence. Where would we go to find an item that talks about that in the codification?
Monica has raised her hand.
Monica, go ahead.
Well, maybe I misunderstood, but I remember 2 weeks ago, there was a lady, I forgot her name, and on the Monday meeting, and she talked exactly about that God does not answer our requests, prayers, or the way we want to, but it's always for the better. Anyhow, we might ask something, we need something, and what we think that we need might not be the best for us, and he always answer our prayers, or what our needs, just not then one day we are going to understand why we didn't get
Perfect.
So
perfect.
I forgot
And
her name.
if
It was a very nice
Okay, when you remember the lady's name, you let me know. But if someone who never studied Spiritism said, you know, what you're saying actually makes a lot of sense. Where can I read a little bit about it? What would you say? Where would you send the person?
The
To which book?
heaven
Gospel.
hell.
Heaven and Hell, which chapter?
Oh, Susanna, come on.
Okay, so the Spirit's book has question 87, for
I was gonna
example.
say, the
So
Spirit's
if you
book.
have the Spirit's book, you can open it. Question 87.
While you're looking for it also, I just want to remind everyone to raise your hands and not just throw it out. Otherwise, we don't know who's speaking. But we also have comments here, heaven and hell, or the gospel, asking shall be given. And also, I just wanted to point out that there is an entire item on Genesis. And I'm not going to say which chapter. It's going to be up to you guys. But the Genesis book,
The most beautiful
indeed.
chapter on providence is in Genesis.
Yes, it is.
Okay, chapter 2 that talks about God, and there is an entire item that speaks about providence. It is
Chapter 1,
pure,
Sue.
it is pure poetry. Okay,
Chapter 2, sorry. Yeah.
chapter 2, the book, I have the book here open in my hand. So it is poetry. It's so beautiful. So if you want to understand how God works, it talks about the fluids, is where we get the example of that we are immersed in the universe cosmic fluid, the same way the fish is in the tank, surrounded by the water. And if you touch that water, no matter where the fish is, the water will vibrate and will get to the fish, right? And the movement of the fish reverberates in the water and it's felt everywhere. So that's the analogy that the spirits bring to us in this chapter, reminding us that our actions, no matter how minute they are, they vibrate, they reverberate into the fluid, into the cosmic fluid, and the whole universe feels it. Okay, so God is constantly aware of our presence, and through the good spirits takes care of us. And so question 87 is not specific, but it asks, do spirits occupy a specific and circumscribed region of space? Spirits are everywhere. They populate infinite space in infinite numbers. There are even some who are constantly at your side, observing and acting upon you without you being aware of it. This is because the spirits are one of the powers of nature and one of the instruments that God used for fulfilling the providential designs. However, not all spirits can go everywhere because their regions, they're forbidden to those who are less advanced. But right here, so sometimes people wonder, how is it that God works? So it's a chain of command, right? So just like in a company, there's this huge company called universe, and spirits in several hierarchies who are working in in perfect harmony and taking care of each one of us, of each being in the universe. So a lot of times things are going to happen, which is the result of the intervention of the good spirits of God in response to our prayers or not, for which we will not understand, because our vision is the vision of the present moment, is the vision of the valley. We don't see the whole picture. So just want to touch quickly on this topic. So if you're doing a lecture or talking to someone about providence, these are some tips on where you can go and where you can find in the codification some material that can help you with that. I'm going to say David. Maybe Fatima, I don't know, but I'm
I'm sorry,
gonna
it's
go
me
with
again.
David.
No, I often use that analogy in my talks that, you know, equate Jesus with the CEO of this immense corporation with 8 billion inhabitants. And the only way his message can reach all those employees within Asperis, right, of the organization is through a mission statement. And his mission statement is unconditional love. So that's the analogy I bring.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So, and then we're going to go back here to the next one. We read this. And so we're going to pass here. I put in bold here that, you know, so when the spirits-oriented Kardec, that the spirits review should have, and we did read this last week as well, have content that would satisfy the curious, but also satisfy people who were more interested in important aspects. So it was important to have a solid foundation, solid instruction, and that this part was more important than the first part. Very well. So one of the readings for this week was about the Spirit's book, in the conclusion of the Spirit's book, and it was the item 5, and actually I think it was third paragraph. I don't think there was a fourth paragraph. And the idea was to make a correlation between that reading with the slide that we just stopped. So the slide talks about putting together in the review aspects that would attend to curiosity, aspects that would be more of an explanation, more of the philosophical aspect, and also a combination of a scientific approach, in other words, a variety. Now, anyone want to attempt to correlate what this paragraph in the conclusion of the Spirit's book says to this instruction to Allan Kardec? First of all, what did the paragraph say? What was the main idea in the paragraph? I have, don't be shy, Andrea is saying. I don't think this group is shy, do you? No. I'm going to take that everybody read, right? Knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go forward here. And here we go. I always have to keep moving my things, you guys, and so I can read because the picture's on top of the thing. I'm not good with this. I think next Wednesday I'm going to be at Andrea's house so she can give me a crash course on how better manage TV screen. All right, so okay. I don't think I put in this. Hold on a second. Yeah, I don't think I put in this presentation. So in the conclusion of the Spirit's book, okay, so Kardec is going to talk about 3 periods, 3 distinctive periods for the development of the Spiritist ideas. The first one is the period of curiosity. So Spiritism, the first part of Spiritism, it was meant to, it was meant for the phenomena. The phenomena took place so we could pay attention to the fact that there was something else besides the incarnate. And so the primary focus of the first phase of Spiritism was to make us curious, to awaken us from our, blindness, to see that there was something else. Then the second period is the period of philosophy. So now that we know that there are spirits, we are starting to develop the whole theory about the existence of the spirits and what that means. to our life. So we developed a whole body of cognitive concepts that helps us to understand life. But then comes the third part, which is the part that we are hoping that we are now entering, and that is really the primary focus of our life, which is the application and the consequences. So a lot of times when people enter Spiritism, they're very focused and very curious about the phenomena. But nowadays, we passed the phenomena. We have gone to the philosophy. And what the world needs the most is people who are willing to take the philosophy and transform into a way of living, into our actions. So we are transitioning into this phase, and that is going to be absolutely necessary if we want to live in a world of regeneration. So it says there that the curiosity has passed. Curiosity does not last long. Once people see the phenomena, they're satisfied, they move on. And Kardec has, in the Medium's book, and we're going to get to it, an entire chapter or item where he's going to talk about how it makes more sense to introduce someone to the idea first, the philosophy, and then to the phenomena, then to the phenomena, and then the philosophy. Because the phenomena, people will see, people will be curious, ones may believe, many won't even believe. They're in front of the phenomena, and they're going to continue to question the phenomena. So Kardec will say that we are much more likely to be successful in terms of, I'm going to use the word conversion, but really like passing on these ideas if the person actually has an understanding of the phenomena in first place. But so he says that, so once people are satisfied with the phenomena, they're ready to move on, to go to something else. The same will not happen when someone is challenged to think, to meditate, to use reason. And this is what characterizes the second period. And then the third comes inevitably. So Spiritism has evolved. Once it has been more understood in its essence, then we understood its reach and the meaning, because where it takes us is to the understanding that we can only be happy if we educate our souls, if we change our values. So the magazine, the Spirits Review, right, had all these aspects, and that is the correlation. So the instruction that the Spirits gave to Kardec was to include all the aspects so it could gather and become interesting for people who are still on the first phase, on the second phase, or people who were already ready to embrace the third and final phase that Spiritism offers. By the way, I really like that part of the conclusion. It's really, really interesting. So if you didn't have a chance to read, go back. If you are short in time, read item 5. If you have a little bit of extra time, read the entire conclusion. So, and finishing here, which is right at our time, we have some final comments. So we have the Spirits Review was then published in January 1st. I published it, assuming all the risks, and I have nothing to regret because its success surpassed all my expectations. Since January 1st, the issue have followed one another without interruption. And just as the Spirit had predicted, the periodical became a powerful aid for me. Our review will thus be a tribune where the discussion will never distance itself from the standards of the strictest conveniences. In one word, we will discuss, but we will not dispute. And that is really one idea that I always had in my mind when I started the work with the English speaking group at our center, for example, which is we are here to talk about the ideas. So we are not out to really dispute the truth with anyone, especially because who am I to say that I know the truth? It would be very pretentious, right? And each one of us has a tiny, tiny fraction of the truth. And the truth is just like that little cartoon with the elephant, right? One person is holding the trunk, the other person is holding the ear, the other person is holding the tail, and each one thinks that it has the whole truth. But we're only describing a small part of that elephant. So the idea is to discuss, but to be respectful, to be embracing, and to also understand that we always have something to learn from everyone. The ones who will agree with us and the ones who will disagree with us. So a mature conversation is one that is characterized by one of the things that I think was so essential and so much part of Allan Kardec, which is curiosity. We should enter our discussions and our groups and whatever we are with curiosity. Curiosity about what others have to say, curiosity about other religions, curiosity about other creeds, about other ways of thinking, and always with the spirit that I'm not here to teach, but I'm also here to learn. And each one of us is here with the same purpose, the purpose to teach and the purpose to learn. But there is a whole text that I really like a lot in the Mediums book that will help us to develop this item a little bit, whether to discuss and not to dispute. So we got a few minutes, so let's go forward a little bit more here. So we are now in the Mediums book. So you see the popcorn thing, we're going to be traveling to different books. So who knows this chapter, the methodology on the Mediums book, chapter 2. What does this chapter talks about? So we're going to read to see here the thinking about, who we should be talking to, who we should be investing our time, our resources when we are trying to talk about Spiritism and the ideas that we embrace. So, for example, it starts by saying one very natural and praiseworthy desire that adherents have, and which should always be encouraged, is that of winning converts. So who hasn't experienced that, right? Trying and wanting to convince someone. To make their task easier, we now intend to examine what we believe are the surest means to realize this objective without wasting any useless effort. Raise your hand, who knows what comes next? Andrea, do I have any hands raised? No? Okay, wonderful. So the course is meeting its purpose, which is to bring a variety of resources to all of us. So let's see what comes here. And these are just pieces. You can go back and read the whole thing, right? As always. Will it be of any use at all to try to convince obstinate disbelievers? We have already stated that these will depend on the causes and nature of their disbelief. Our insistence in trying to persuade them often leads them to believe in their own self-importance, which in turn leads them to be even more obstinate. Those who are neither convinced by reasoning nor phenomena still have the trial of disbelief to endure, and we must leave to Providence the task of leading them onto the path of more favorable circumstances. There are too many other people who desire to receive the light for us to waste our time on those who reject it. So interesting, right? Interesting approach over here. So we must leave to Providence. Now we do know a little bit about Providence. So God will work its ways in order to create the circumstances that will at some point promote the ideal time for people to open up to different ideas. It's also interesting how he says that, you know, by insisting, we actually making the person feel that I am that important because this person is really wasting or using that much time to try to convince me. So it's an aspect that I actually had never like really thought about. And he's going to continue on by saying, therefore, direct your efforts to those of goodwill, who are greater in number than you might think. Your example will overcome any resistance more easily than will mere words. True spiritists never lack an opportunity to do good, afflicted hearts to relieve, consolation to offer, desperate emotions to calm, moral reforms to instill. This is their mission, wherein they will find true satisfaction. Spiritism pervades the atmosphere. It is expanding because of the very force of circumstances and because it enables those who profess it to be happy. When its theoretic adversaries hear it resounding all around them, even among their own friends, they will come to grips with their isolation and will be forced either to fall silent or surrender. In this chapter, he goes so much in depth about the disbelievers, all kinds of disbelievers. Some are more disbelievers than others. Some are disbelieving just because they're like, you know, I don't, you know, it's too much work to believe. But some are true disbelievers. So he goes into like this category. He also goes into the categories of the believers. All right. So the people say, well, I believe, but that belief doesn't really go anywhere. And you know, and then there's a spectrum. So it's a nice reading, and it's very enlightening actually to go through this whole item here. All right. Before I close with the final considerations, any thoughts on that? Anyone wants to say anything? Is there anything on the chat that we should look at? No. Okay. So here are our final considerations for today. Although the task was heavy for him, Allan Kardec managed and directed Spirit's Review until March 31st of 1869, while also being responsible for the April issue of that same year, which was already drafted before his discarnation. He worked alone, unhindered by any outside will. In the first 12 years of the Spiritist Review was the complement. In its first 12 years, the Spirit's Review was the complement of the doctrinal work started by Allan Kardec and also its main pillar. In addition to the codifier, Allan Kardec, the review had the collaboration of hundreds of participants, incarnate and discarnate, from France and other nations, among which scientists, literati, philosophers, religious, and common people. Hold on. I missed you. I lost you guys, right? Oh, here we go. Apologies. Religious and common people, each one helping to launch in their respective sphere of action the foundations on which the grandiose edifice of Spiritism would rise. So we'll see that he did a lot of work. He did have a lot of contribution. For instance, the first edition of the Spirits book was launched, not the one that we have right now, with 500 and so questions. After that, Kardec received many, many communications from all over the world, and was the body of these communications that came right after, from different mediums, that actually gave him the material to do the second part and complement the questions to the 1019 questions that we have today. So many mediums, and this is the universality of the teaching, comes from that. He received a lot of the same information from a lot of different mediums in a lot of parts of the world. And in that way, he put together the Spirits book. And then later on, also, the Spirits Review was part of, a collaboration of many, many different individuals. Okay, so this is it for today. Are there any questions, any final comments? Anyone would like to say anything? Hi, Sandra. I didn't know you were there.
Oh, I just wanted to comment one last thing, because it's so much, everything that's going on in our own lives today, right? We can't, maybe in different areas, politics, religion, or whatever, we can't convince anybody of what we believe in. And it's mostly through our actions and through our studies and just through mostly through our kindness, that people eventually either come towards us, or like he says, either they fail or they come to you, or they surrender. They fail or they surrender. So I just thought it was interesting how much it relates to our everyday life. So thank you.
You're very welcome. So nice to see you here with us. Yes, I agree. And it's just that, the enthusiasm, the gratitude, the kindness, the effort, the daily effort, the taking responsibility, all those things that Spiritism does for us and that we start to integrate in our daily lives. Nothing will ever be more powerful than that, than, what we transmit, what we are manifesting each day as a result of the study and in our, dedication and commitment to our own betterment and our own growth. So, and that's basically what he says over there. There's nothing more powerful, and it's going to come to a moment that it's just going to be irresistible. It's like, okay, I need to know what these people are doing, because this is too much. So thank you so much, guys, for being here today. If you don't have any more questions or comments, I do have our final slide here. Okay, so for the 2 weeks from now, the reading is actually the introduction. So let me find my book here, the Spirits Review. I want to be very clear here. So, all right, so we have the introduction, right? You see mine is already read. I already have I have underlined, I have circled some words and have written the definition and had done some research about those words. So read carefully, make your own annotations, just like in school, right? At the book, so you can prepare for class. And also, there is a reading, it's a very short reading from What is Spiritism? The Practical Usefulness of Manifestations. Where did my book go? Let me see if I can locate that quickly. Actually, it's called The Providential Aim of Spirit's Manifestations. I think that's how it's translated here. I will double check and I will, one of us will, you know, put like very specifically what the translation is in the book. But again, it's a very short reading. Okay. So with that, is there any volunteers just to do a quick final prayer for us? I think Andrea just volunteered. So Andrea, go ahead.
I was reading Cynthia's comments. She wants to know if the homework is to read the introduction of the Spiritist Review of 1858. So correct, right?
Correct.
Yes.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Cynthia, for the question. So let us close our eyes if we wish to. Definitely open our hearts in gratitude at this time for this wonderful moment that we have had, to be in touch with such a beautiful body of knowledge in which we start to think a lot more about Allan Kardec, his education, commitment, his work that allowed us to be here connected through the lines of technology and that of the heart as well, which unites us in seeking knowledge, seeking answers, seeking more understanding about life with capital L. And for that, we thank you so much, Kardec, wherever you may find yourself in the universe, asking the benefactors, the benevolent spirits, to be with us always, protecting our homes and encouraging us, even when we seem not to be listening, to continue studying and making an effort to become better than we were yesterday, being mindful of being kind to ourselves, as we are also on the progress, the road towards progress, enlightenment, and spiritual growth. Thank you so much for the time that Susanna is taking to prepare this study